My boyfriend left me stranded at a desolate gas station at 1 in the morning, shivering in the freezing cold, without $1 to my name, all because I refused to wire him $5,000 after he ate my family's entire Thanksgiving turkey. I am sitting here staring at a police report that lists my grandmother's stolen heart medication as evidence, shaking so hard I can barely hold the paper. How did I let a man who cared more about the vascularity of his biceps than my safety destroy my life in a single night? I thought I was dating a dedicated athlete, but I was sleeping next to a predator who was calculating the net worth of my inheritance while I slept. He screamed at my brother for body shaming him while stuffing 2 pounds of meat into his mouth, and then tried to blackmail me with revenge porn when I finally said no. He wanted to be treated like a king, but now he is facing felonies that will keep him behind bars for a very long time. I feel sick, violated, and incredibly stupid. Am I the villain for finally letting the law destroy the man I thought I loved? The woman staring back at me from the floor to ceiling vanity mirror did not look like Stella Monroe. She did not look like the 25-year-old girl who, just 2 years ago, was scrubbing espresso stains off her apron at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, counting quarters to see if she could afford a subway ride or if she would have to walk 40 blocks home in the rain. No, the woman in the mirror looked like a porcelain doll. My name is Stella Monroe. I am 25 years old, a freelance graphic designer by trade. Though I have not taken a client in 6 months, I have no family left to speak of. My mother passed when I was 18, leaving me with nothing but a shoebox of photos and a mountain of medical debt. But tonight, none of that matters. Tonight, I am the lady of the manor. I am standing in the master suite of a $6 million smart home in Greenwich, Connecticut, about to go downstairs and smile until my jaw aches. I smoothed the silk of my dress, a custom-made emerald gown that cost more than my entire college tuition. It was beautiful, undeniably, but it was also tight, suffocatingly tight. Smile, Stella. This is the dream. This is what you prayed for when you were eating instant noodles in the dark because you could not pay the electric bill. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the tremor in my hands. Outside the window, the manicured lawn was bathed in the soft, ambient glow of garden lights. A fleet of luxury sedans and sport utility vehicles lined the driveway. The creme de la creme of Connecticut society was downstairs, drinking vintage champagne and waiting for us, waiting for Liam Sterling and his lucky little charity case. Saluting howling. Due cancelletto e maggiore di Liam. My stomach did a strange flip. Not butterflies, something heavier, like a stone dropping into a well. Liam Sterling is 27, a prodigy in private equity, and the man who swept me out of my debt-ridden existence like a knight in a tailored Italian suit. He paid off my $60,000 student loan balance on our 3rd date. He did not make a big deal out of it. He just tapped his phone, showed me the 0 balance, and shrugged. "Now you are free," he had said. I thought it was the most romantic thing anyone had ever done. Now, looking at the diamond earrings he had placed on the dresser for me, I wondered why freedom felt so heavy. A soft chime echoed through the room. "Stella." A voice smooth as velvet came from the speakers embedded in the walls. It was the house artificial intelligence system, but the voice was Liam's. He had programmed it that way. "The guests are waiting. 2 minutes. Coming," I whispered. Though I knew the sensors picked it up, I walked toward the bedroom door. It slid open silently before I even touched the handle. Everything in this house was automated. The lights, the locks, the temperature, the blinds. It was designed for ultimate convenience. Yet sometimes, in the dead of night, I felt like I was living inside the belly of a very intelligent beast. I descended the floating glass staircase. The noise of the party rose up to meet me. The clinking of crystal, the murmur of polite conversation, the soft jazz playing in the background. Liam was standing at the bottom of the stairs. He looked devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, his blonde hair perfectly coiffed, that charming, boyish smile plastered on his face. He was talking to a gray-haired man I recognized as a senator. But the moment he saw me, his eyes locked onto mine. For a second, his expression was unreadable, assessing, calculating, like an appraiser looking for a scratch on a diamond. Then, the warmth flooded back in. Practiced and perfect, there she is, Liam announced, loud enough to draw the room's attention. The reason I rush home every day. He extended his hand. I took it. His grip was firm, a little too firm. His fingers dug slightly into the soft flesh of my palm. A subtle warning disguised as affection. "You are late," he whispered in my ear as he pulled me in for a kiss on the cheek. His voice was low, devoid of the warmth he projected to the room. 3 minutes late. Stella, punctuality is a sign of respect. I was trembling in the bathroom. I wanted to say, instead, I smiled, the mask slipping into place. "I am sorry. Darling, I wanted to look perfect for you." He pulled back and looked me up and down. His hand rested on the small of my back, his thumb tracing the zipper of my dress. "The neckline is a bit lower than we discussed," he murmured, his tone light, conversational, though his eyes were cold. "But you look stunning. Just do not lean forward too much. We do not want to give the old men a heart attack." He chose the dress. He ordered it. He approved the fitting. Now he is criticizing it? I swallowed the lump in my throat. Of course. "Liam," we moved through the crowd. I was a prop. I knew the drill. Laugh at the bad jokes. Nod at the investment advice I did not understand. And look adoringly at Liam every time he spoke. "Stella, dear, you must be so grateful." A woman with a face pulled tight by surgery cooed at me, clutching a glass of Chardonnay from Saouding. "2 hash is greater than wherever you came from." To this, it is a modern-day Cinderella story. "Brooklyn," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I came from Brooklyn. Quaint." She sniffed. From across the room, I felt a pair of eyes burning into me. Eleanor Sterling, Liam's mother. She sat on a high-backed velvet armchair like a queen on her throne. Dressed in severe, black, she did not smile. She never smiled at me. To her, I was an invasive species, a weed in her perfectly pruned garden. Liam tapped his glass with a silver spoon. The room fell silent. Everyone. Liam's voice boomed, charismatic and commanding. "Thank you for coming tonight. As you know, life is about investments, knowing where to put your time, your energy, and your heart." He turned to me. The spotlight hit us, blindingly bright. 2 years ago, I made the best investment of my life, he said, dropping to one knee. The crowd gasped in unison, a theatrical sound that felt scripted. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and snapped it open. Inside sat a diamond the size of a quail egg. It was absurd. It was obscene. It was worth more than my entire childhood neighborhood. Dilla Monroe, Liam said, his blue eyes shining with what looked like tears, though I knew he could cry on command. I had seen him do it to get out of a speeding ticket once. Will you make me the happiest man alive? Will you be my wife? The room held its breath. I looked at the ring. It did not look like jewelry. It looked like a shackle. Say yes. You have to say yes. He paid your debts. He gave you a home. You have nowhere else to go. Do not be ungrateful. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I looked at Eleanor. She took a sip of her drink, her eyes narrowing slightly, daring me to ruin this. I looked down at Liam. He was smiling, but his jaw was clenched tight. The pressure in the air was physical, pressing down on my lungs. Yes, I breathed out, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. Yes, of course. The room erupted in applause. Liam slid the ring onto my finger. It was heavy, cold. He stood up and kissed me. Hard. It was not a kiss of passion. It was a kiss of ownership. He leaned close to my ear again, under the cover of the applause. Good girl, he whispered. A chill ran down my spine, colder than the air conditioning. It was not a term of endearment. It was what you said to a dog that finally obeyed a command. As the champagne corks popped and the music swelled, I looked around at the smiling faces, the opulent furniture, the smart home sensors blinking rhythmically in the corners of the ceiling like unblinking eyes. I was safe. I was rich. I was loved. So why did I feel like the walls were slowly closing in? The silence that descended upon the house after the last luxury sedan crunched down the gravel driveway was absolute. It was not the peaceful silence of a home settling in for the night. It was the heavy, pressurized silence of a submarine diving too deep. The house artificial intelligence system, which Liam had named Alfred, automatically dimmed the lights to a cool, sterile blue. The upbeat jazz playlist cut off abruptly, replaced by the low hum of the central cooling system. The party was over. The performance was done. I stood in the center of the living room, my feet throbbing in my heels. My face hurt from 3 hours of continuous, unwavering smiling. I looked at Liam, expecting a hug, a shared laugh about the senator's toupee, or maybe just a moment of genuine connection now that the audience was gone. Liam did not look at me. He walked straight to the wet bar, his back stiff. He loosened his silk bow tie with a sharp tug and poured himself a glass of amber scotch. No ice. He downed half of it in one swallow. The liquid courage evidently needed to wash away the taste of sociability. That was a great party. I ventured, my voice sounding small in the cavernous room. Liam turned slowly. The warmth from the proposal was gone, completely evaporated. In its place was a flat, businesslike indifference. He looked at me not as his fiancée, but as an employee who had just completed a shift. It was adequate, he said, swirling the remaining liquor in his glass. You laughed too loud at Johnson's joke. It sounded desperate. Work on that. The criticism stung, sharp and immediate. I opened my mouth to defend myself, to say I was just trying to be polite. But he cut me off by slamming a thick manila folder onto the marble coffee table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Sit down, Stella. We need to handle the paperwork. Paperwork? Tonight? I blinked, confused. Can we not do this in the morning? It is 2 a.m. Liam, business does not sleep, he replied, his tone brooking no argument. I sat on the edge of the white leather sofa, careful not to wrinkle my dress. My heart began that anxious flutter again. I knew about the prenuptial agreement. Liam had mentioned it early in our relationship. He had assets to protect, family money, investments. I understood that. I had nothing to my name but a used Honda and a graphic design degree I was barely using. I never expected to take half his empire. Liam flipped the folder open. He did not sit next to me. He stood over me, looming like a skyscraper. "This is standard," he said, pointing to the first few pages. "What you get if we divorce. A lump sum, enough to keep you comfortable for a year or two. Generous, considering you brought zero equity into this partnership." I nodded, feeling a flush of shame. He always had a way of making me feel like a charity case with a single word. "But this," Liam continued, flipping to a page near the back, marked with a red sticky note. "This is the most important part. Read it." I leaned forward. The legal jargon was dense, but the heading was clear enough. Clause 14, B, open marriage and lifestyle maintenance. My breath hitched. I read the paragraph twice. Sure, I was misunderstanding the legalese. It stated, in cold, black ink, that the husband, Liam Sterling, reserved the exclusive right to engage in extramarital sexual relations for the duration of the union. It explicitly stated that this was necessary for his mental well-being and business focus. Conversely, the wife, Stella Monroe, was to remain strictly monogamous. I looked up at him, my vision blurring slightly. "Liam," I whispered, "what is this?" "It is exactly what it says," he replied calmly, taking another sip of scotch. "You want, Sauiting Haling, 2 hashes greater than an open marriage? No. Stella, you are not listening." He leaned down, placing a hand on the back of the sofa, boxing me in. "I want an open marriage for me. You, my dear, will be the faithful, doting wife. You will run this house. You will host the parties. And eventually, you will carry my heirs. That is your job." "My job?" I stood up, my legs shaking. "I thought we were getting married because you loved me. Love is a chemical reaction. Stella, marriage is a contract." He laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Look at this house. Look at that ring on your finger. Do you know how much the overhead is to maintain this lifestyle? I work 18 hours a day. I carry the weight of this entire family. The stress is unimaginable." He began to pace, gesturing with his glass. "I need outlets. I need variety. It keeps my testosterone high. It keeps me aggressive in the market. Sex with the same woman for 50 years? That is how men lose their edge. I cannot afford to lose my edge. Stella, if I lose my edge, who pays for your manicures? Who pays for your organic groceries? Who keeps you from going back to that rat-infested apartment in Brooklyn?" The gaslighting was so seamless, so confident, that for a split second, I questioned my own sanity. Was I being selfish? Was I being naive? No, this was insane. "Liam, this is disgusting," I said, my voice rising. "You want a license to cheat? And you want me to sign off on it? I am not cheating if it is in the contract." He countered smoothly. "It is transparency. Most men do it behind their wives' backs. I am giving you the courtesy of honesty." He looked at me with genuine confusion, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "I cannot sign this," I said, backing away. "I will not." Liam stopped pacing. His face went hard. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "You have a choice. Stella." He pointed a manicured finger at the door. "You can walk out that door right now. But remember, the moment you step off this property, the credit cards are canceled. The car is leased in my name. You have no savings because you spent the last 2 years playing house. You will be on the street with nothing but the dress on your back. He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a seductive whisper. Or, you can sign the paper. You can stay in your beautiful home. You can keep your beautiful clothes. You can live a life 99% of women would kill for. All you have to do is look the other way when I need to blow off some steam. I looked at the pen lying on the table. It was a Mont Blanc, heavy and expensive. He was not asking me to be his wife. He was negotiating the terms of my employment. And the worst part was, he was right. He had designed my life so perfectly that I was completely trapped. I had no money, no career, no friends I had not alienated by immersing myself in his world. Just sign it. Stella, he said, his voice soft now, almost tender. Do not throw away paradise because of your little middle-class morals. I looked into his eyes and saw nothing. No love, no empathy, just the cold, dead calculation of a shark. My hand trembled as I reached for the pen. I felt like I was signing my own death warrant, but the fear of the cold, dark street outside was stronger than my pride. At least, that is what I told myself. Sauting Holling, Tuhash is greater than I signed. Liam smiled, snatching the paper away the moment the ink hit the page. Good girl, he said again. He finished his drink, set the glass down on a coaster, and turned toward the stairs. I am going to bed. Do not wake me. I have an early meeting. He walked away without looking back, leaving me alone in the $6 million living room that suddenly felt more like a high-security prison cell. I looked down at the diamond on my finger. It sparkled under the recessed lighting. Mocking me, the first crack had appeared in the perfect facade, and deep down, in the pit of my stomach, I knew the whole structure was about to come crashing down. The morning sun filtered through the high-tech, automated blinds, casting jagged strips of light across the king-sized bed. I lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence of the house. It was 8:30 in the morning. I knew this because the house artificial intelligence, Alfred, had softly announced the time and the weather. 72 degrees and sunny. 10 minutes ago, Liam was gone. I had heard his Porsche growl down the driveway at exactly 7:45. He had not said goodbye. He had not kissed my forehead. He had simply left, assuming that the contract we signed last night was binding enough to keep me tethered to this mattress until he returned to use me again. He was wrong. I sat up, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The shame of signing that paper still burned in my chest, hot and acidic. But beneath the shame was something sharper, survival instinct. I had grown up scraping pennies together to buy bread. I had learned to navigate evictions and utility shutoffs. I knew when a situation was no longer salvageable. This was not a marriage. It was a hostage situation wrapped in silk sheets. I threw off the heavy duvet and sprinted to the walk-in closet. It was larger than my first apartment, filled with rows of designer dresses, shoes that cost more than a car payment, and handbags that could feed a family for a year. I ignored them all. I pushed aside the Prada and the Gucci, digging to the back where I kept my old life hidden. I found it, a worn, gray duffel bag I had used in college. My hands shook as I stuffed it with the essentials: jeans, t-shirts, underwear, my old laptop. I did not take the jewelry. I did not take the emerald gown. I wanted nothing that he had bought. I just wanted out. I zipped the bag shut and slung it over my shoulder. It felt light, terrifyingly light. Was this really all I had to show for 2 years of my life? A half-full bag of old clothes and a broken heart. I hurried out of the bedroom, and down the long, pristine hallway. The house was quiet, disturbingly so. Usually, the cleaning staff would be here by now, the hum of vacuums filling the air. Today, there was no one, just me and the blinking sensors of the smart home system. I reached the bottom of the stairs and pulled my phone from my pocket. I needed a ride. We lived in a secluded estate in Greenwich, miles from the nearest train station. Walking would take hours, and I did not want to be on the open road where Liam could spot me. I opened the rideshare app. My fingers flew across the screen, typing in the address of the train station. The estimated fare was $45. Confirm ride. I held my breath, watching the little spinning wheel on the screen. Payment declined. Please update your payment method. I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. That was my debit card. My personal card. It had nothing to do with Liam. Or so I thought. I tried again. Declined. I switched to the credit card Liam had given me. The infinite limit black card he loved to flash at restaurants. Card suspended by issuer. Panic began to rise in my throat, tasting like bile. I opened my banking app. I logged in with trembling fingers. Account balance, $0.00. Status, frozen pending investigation. I gasped, dropping the phone on the marble floor. It clattered loudly, the sound echoing through the empty foyer. He had drained it. He had somehow accessed my personal account, probably buried in the fine print of that cursed contract, and emptied it. Or perhaps he had simply flagged it for fraud. It did not matter how. The result was the same. I was penniless. Okay, I whispered to myself, my voice shaking. Okay, Stella, keep it together. You can walk. You have legs. Just get out of the house. Figure the rest out later. I grabbed the duffel bag tighter and marched toward the massive oak front door. This door was a masterpiece of modern engineering, reinforced with steel and equipped with a biometric fingerprint scanner. I reached for the handle. It was locked. I pressed my thumb against the scanner. The small light on the panel turned green for a fraction of a second, then immediately flashed red. Access denied. I stared at it. I wiped my thumb on my jeans and tried again. Access denied. No. I whimpered. I grabbed the handle with both hands and pulled. It did not budge. It felt like I was trying to pull open a bank vault. Alfred, I shouted at the ceiling, my voice cracking. Unlock the front door. The smooth, synthetic voice of the artificial intelligence responded instantly. I am sorry. Stella, perimeter lockdown is active. All exits are sealed. Unlock it, I screamed, slamming my fist against the wood. Let me out. Suddenly, a mechanical whirring sound filled the room. I spun around. The heavy, automated security shutters on the windows were descending. One by one, the views of the manicured garden were cut off, replaced by thick slats of metal. The living room, the dining room, the kitchen. Every window was sealing shut. The sunlight was choked out, leaving the house in a dim, artificial gloom. What is happening? I cried out, backing away from the door. The large, flat-screen television mounted above the fireplace flickered to life. It was not a broadcast. It was a video call. Liam's face filled the screen. He was sitting in his office in Manhattan, the city skyline visible behind him through the window. He was wearing his reading glasses, looking at a document on his desk. He looked calm, professional, as if he were in a board meeting. Stella, he said, his voice amplified by the surround sound speakers. It felt like God was speaking from the heavens. I received a notification that you are trying to leave the property. I stared at the screen, my chest heaving. Opened the door. Liam, let me out. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose, looking disappointed. We talked about this last night. We have an agreement. You cannot just run away when things get difficult. That is very immature. You stole my money. I screamed, tears finally spilling over. You locked me in. This is insane. This is kidnapping. Do not be dramatic, he said, his tone dangerously level. I did not steal anything. I consolidated our assets for better management. And I am not kidnapping you. I am protecting you. Protecting me? I laughed. A hysterical, jagged sound. From what? From yourself. He replied, you are emotional right now. Stella, you are not thinking clearly. If you step out that door with no money, no plan, and no resources, what will happen to you? You will be on the street. You will be vulnerable. Bad things happen to desperate women. Stella, he leaned closer to the camera, his blue eyes piercing through the pixels. You are safe here. You have food. You have shelter. You have me. Why would you want to go back to the gutter? I hate you. I whispered, I hate you so much. Hate is just passion without direction, he said dismissively. You will calm down. I have instructed Alfred to keep the house in lockdown until I return this evening. We will have a nice dinner, and we will discuss your allowance. I am calling the police, I threatened, reaching for my phone on the floor. Liam Seahill, go ahead, look at your phone. Stella, I picked it up. The screen showed 0 bars of service. No signal. I installed a signal jammer in the house last month, he explained casually, as if talking about a new thermostat. For security purposes, of course, to prevent hackers, but it is useful for preventing 2 hash is greater than rash decisions. I felt the blood drain from my face. He had thought of everything, every exit, every contingency, every lifeline. He had severed them all. Just relax. Darling, Liam said, checking his watch. Read a book. Take a bath. I will be home by 7. And Stella, put on the red dress tonight. I like that one. The screen went black. I stood in the darkness of the living room, the silence returning with a vengeance. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning and the frantic beating of my own heart. I ran to the back door, the one that led to the patio. Locked. I grabbed a heavy bronze statue from the console table and smashed it against the window in the dining room. The glass did not shatter. It did not even crack. It was impact resistant, bulletproof safety glass. The statue bounced off with a dull thud and clattered to the floor, leaving a small scuff mark on the surface. I dropped to my knees, burying my face in my hands. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. This was not a smart home. It was a high-tech prison. I looked up at the ceiling, where the small black domes of the cameras stared down at me. I knew he was watching. Even if the call had ended, he could see me. He was probably watching me right now on his phone, watching me break down, watching me realize that I was completely, utterly powerless. You cannot keep me here forever, I whispered to the empty room. But as the automated lights slowly brightened to compensate for the closed shutters, casting a sterile, artificial glow over my prison, a terrifying thought crept into my mind. Maybe he could. He had the money. He had the control. And outside these walls, to the rest of the world, I was just the lucky girl who had won the lottery. No one was coming to save me. Why would they? who looks for a victim in a mansion. I curled up on the cold marble floor, pulling my knees to my chest. My inner monologue, usually so sharp and sarcastic, was silent, drowned out by a single, overwhelming word that echoed in the darkness of my mind. Saoyuting Haoling, 2 hashes greater than trapped. Time became a liquid concept in the windowless gloom of the living room. Without the sun to mark the passing hours, I was left with only the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. It had been, by my estimation, 3 hours since the shutters had slammed down. 3 hours of pacing. 3 hours of screaming until my throat felt like I had swallowed broken glass. 3 hours of silence answering me back. I was sitting on the bottom step of the staircase, my head resting on my knees, when a sharp, electronic chirp pierced the air. Beep, 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 click. The sound of the front door keypad. My head snapped up. Hope, sudden and violent, surged through my chest. Had Liam come back early? Had he realized this was insanity? Or maybe the police? Had someone seen the shutters close and called for a welfare check? The heavy oak door swung open, slicing a rectangle of blinding natural light into the dim foyer. Help! I scrambled to my feet, my legs numb from sitting too long. Please, help me. I rushed toward the silhouette standing in the doorway, ready to beg, to plead, to run. But as my eyes adjusted to the glare, I skidded to a halt. It was not the police. It was not Liam. It was Eleanor Sterling. She stood there in impeccably tailored Chanel suit, her silver hair sprayed into an unmoving helmet of perfection. She looked at me, disheveled, tear-stained, barefoot, with the same expression one might view a stain on a silk rug. Eleanor, I gasped, ignoring her coldness. Thank God. You have to help me. Liam went crazy. He locked the house. He trapped me in here. Please, you have to let me out. Eleanor did not move. She did not look shocked. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Calm down, Stella, she said, her voice crisp and dry. You are making a scene, and the neighbors have ears. A scene? I stared at her, incredulous. I am a prisoner. He cut off my phone. He drained my bank account. He is keeping me here against my will. Eleanor Sehid. A long, weary sound of disappointment. She walked past me into the living room, her heels clicking sharply on the marble. She surveyed the room, her eyes landing on the scuff mark where I had thrown the statue at the window. She tutted softly. I see you have been destructive. That is property damage. Stella, Liam works very hard for these things. Are you listening to me? I grabbed her arm. It was like grabbing a marble pillar. He is sick. He needs help. We need to call the police. Eleanor pulled her arm away with a sharp jerk. She turned to face me, her eyes icy blue, the exact shade of her son's. The only person who needs help here is you. My dear, she said. Liam called me. He told me you were having an episode. Hysteria. He called it. I did not want to believe him. But looking at you now, Saoyuting Haoling, 2 hashes greater than, she swept her gaze over my trembling form. I see he was right. I am not hysterical. I screamed, the sound echoing off the high ceilings. I am terrified. He wants an open marriage. Eleanor, he wants to sleep with other women and keep me here like a Saoyuting Haoling, 2 hashes greater than like a breeding mare. I expected her to be appalled. I expected her, a woman, a mother, to understand the violation. Instead, a small, Chilling smile touched her lips. Is that all? She asked. The air left my lungs. Is that Sao Yu Ding Ha Lin? Coxie, all. Oh, grow up. Stella, Eleanor snapped, her facade of politeness cracking. Do you think you are the first woman to make a compromise for a life of luxury? Do you think my husband was a saint? Do you think any man with power and money is satisfied with just one course for dinner every night for 50 years? She stepped closer, her perfume, something heavy and floral, clogging my senses. The Sterling men are providers. They build empires. They carry the weight of the world. If Liam needs a little recreation to keep his stress levels down, you should be thanking him that he comes home to you at all. You should be grateful he pays the bills so you can sit around in this mansion and paint your nails. I stepped back, revulsion churning in my stomach. You are insane, both of you. We are realists. She corrected. You are the one living in a fairy tale. You thought you could marry a king and not deal with the politics of the court? You are a girl from nowhere. Stella, you have no money, no family, no legacy. You bring nothing to the table but your youth, and that is a depreciating asset. She held out her hand, palm up, expectant. Give it to me, she commanded. Give you what? The phone, she said. Liam said, you still have your phone. He cannot have you calling people and spreading these vicious lies while you are in this state. It could damage the company's stock. No. I clutched the phone in my pocket. It was useless without a signal, but it was mine. You cannot have it, Stella, she warned, her voice dropping an octave. Do not make this difficult. If I have to call the private security team to restrain you, I will, and they are not as gentle as I am. I looked at her, and I saw the truth. She was not just enabling him, she was the architect. She had built Liam in her image. She had taught him that people were possessions, and that love was a transaction. My hand trembled as I pulled the phone from my pocket. I placed it in her outstretched hand. Good, she said, slipping it into her purse. This is for your own good. You need a detox. A few days of quiet reflection will help you appreciate what you have. She turned and walked back to the door. Wait, I cried, running after her. You cannot leave me here, Eleanor. Please, I am a human being. She opened the door, the sunlight taunting me one last time. She paused on the threshold, looking back over her shoulder. You are a Sterling now. Stella, act like one, or we will find someone who can. The door slammed shut. Click. Weir. Thud. The locks engaged. I threw myself against the wood, hammering it with my fists until my knuckles bled. I screamed until my voice gave out, but no one came. I slid down to the floor, defeated. The silence of the house returned, heavier than before. I was truly alone. Then, I heard the soft click of claws on marble. I looked up. Buster, my golden retriever, trotted around the corner. He had been hiding in the laundry room during the shouting. He came to me, whining softly, and licked the tears from my cheek. I buried my face in his golden fur, hugging him so tight it probably hurt. It is just you and me, buddy, I whispered into his ear, my voice raspy and broken. Just you and me. But as I sat there in the dark, petting the only living thing that did not view me as a commodity, the tears stopped. The fear began to harden into something cold and sharp in the pit of my stomach. They thought I was weak. They thought I was just a poor girl from Brooklyn who would crumble under the weight of their gold. They had forgotten one thing. In Brooklyn, when you get knocked down, you do not stay down. You get up, and you find a brick Hunger has a way of clarifying things. It strips away the complex layers of emotion, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the confusion, and leaves only a primal, gnawing ache. It had been 7 hours since I had eaten a single bite. I stood in the kitchen, pulling on the handle of the massive, stainless steel refrigerator. It did not budge. The small liquid crystal display screen embedded in the door glowed with a cheerful blue light. Scheduled access only. Next meal window, 1900 hours. 7 o'clock. I had to wait 2 more hours for permission to eat an apple in my own home. I kicked the cabinet. A dull thud that did nothing to satisfy my rage. This was not just control. This was torture. It was designed to break me, to make me docile, to make me grateful for the scraps he would toss me when he walked through the door. But as I leaned my forehead against the cool steel of the fridge, a thought sparked in the darkness of my mind. If Liam was this paranoid, this controlling about a piece of cheese, what else was he hiding? He had taken my cards. He had taken my phone. He had locked the exits. He was terrified of me leaving. Why? Was it just possessiveness? Or was it something else? I pushed myself off the fridge. My hunger was still there, but now it had a target. I walked quietly to the west wing of the house, to Liam's home office. The door was heavy mahogany, usually kept locked, but in his arrogance, or perhaps his rush to leave this morning, he had left it slightly ajar. I slipped inside. The room smelled of expensive leather, cigar smoke, and secrets. I went straight to the large painting of the Connecticut coastline hanging behind his desk. It was a cliché, something out of a bad spy movie. But Liam was nothing if not predictable in his pretension. I lifted the heavy frame. There it was, a wall safe. I stared at the digital keypad, 4 digits. I tried my birthday, April 12th. The light flashed red. I tried our anniversary, October 1st. Red again. I paused, closing my eyes, trying to think like him. Liam Sterling, the man who checked his reflection in every shop window, the man who had a portrait of himself commissioned for the library. I punched in June 3rd, his birthday, Sao Ting Hao Ling, Tvo, click, the mechanism, word, and the heavy door swung open. My heart hammered against my ribs. I reached inside, expecting to find stacks of cash. I needed cash. If I could get cash, I could bribe a delivery driver or break a window and run to the nearest neighbor. But there was no cash. Instead, the safe was stuffed with papers, messy, crumpled papers that looked nothing like the organized files Liam kept on his desk. I pulled out a handful. Final notice, past, due, urgent. The words leaped out at me in aggressive red ink. I shuffled through them, my hands trembling. A mortgage statement for the house. It was 6 months behind. The bank was threatening foreclosure proceedings starting next week. A credit card statement from American Express. Balance, $140,000. Minimum payment missed. Gambling markers from a casino in Atlantic City. $50,000. $75,000. I sank into the leather executive chair, the papers spilling onto the floor. My breath came in short, shallow gasps. He was broke. The lifestyle, the cars, the parties, the charity galas. It was all a lie, a house of cards built on debt and delusion. He was not a financial prodigy. He was a drowning man. I reached back into the safe. My fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. A phone, a cheap, disposable flip phone. I pulled it out. It was powered on. I opened it. and the screen illuminated my face with a sickly green glow. There were no business contacts, no calls to investors. There were only messages, hundreds of them, and they were all from women. Lady Margaret, I deposited the 5,000 into your offshore account. Darling, make sure you wear the blue silk tonight. I like it when you beg. Countess V, the car payment is taken care of, but you owe me an extra hour this weekend. And bring the handcuffs. Mrs. Henderson, I saw the engagement photos. She is very pretty. Liam, a perfect little beard. Does she know you belong to us? I dropped the phone on the desk as if it were a venomous snake. I felt the vomit rising in my throat. I ran to the small trash can in the corner and dry heaved until my stomach muscles ached. It all made sense. The late nights at the office, the constant trips for business, the prenup, the open marriage clause. He did not want an open marriage because he had a high sex drive. He needed an open marriage because it was his job. Liam Sterling was not a private equity manager. He was a high-end escort, a sugar baby for the wealthy, lonely widows of the Gold Coast. He was selling his body to pay for the mansion, and he needed me. Young, naive, respectable Stella, to play the role of the doting wife so he could maintain his facade of legitimacy. I was his cover. I was the prop that convinced the world he was a successful businessman and not a gigolo drowning in debt. I stood up, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. I walked back to the desk and looked at the phone again. I looked at the foreclosure notice. The fear that had paralyzed me for the last 12 hours began to evaporate. It was replaced by something colder, something harder. He was not a monster. Monsters are powerful. Monsters are scary. Liam was just a pathetic, desperate fraud. He had gaslighted me into thinking I was the leech. He had made me feel small, worthless, and dependent, all while he was spending money he did not have and sleeping with octogenarians to keep the lights on. I looked up at the security camera in the corner of the room. A slow, dark smile spread across my face. He thought he had locked a victim in this house. He thought he had trapped a scared little mouse. He was wrong. I gathered the papers. I took the burner phone. I put everything back into the safe exactly as I had found it. Except for one thing. I took photos. I used the burner phone to take pictures of the documents. And then I hid the phone in the waistband of my jeans. Under my oversized sweater, I closed the safe. June 3rd, I walked out of the office and headed back to the kitchen. The hunger was gone. I was not starving anymore. I was ready to hunt. The sound of the garage door opening rumbled through the floorboards like a distant earthquake. It was 7:15 in the evening. I was sitting at the kitchen island. The room was dark, save for the under-cabinet lighting that cast a clinical white glow on the marble countertop. In front of me, arranged like a hand of cards in a high-stakes poker game, were the documents I had retrieved from the safe. The foreclosure notice, the gambling debts, the printouts of the text messages from the burner phone which I had photographed and then transcribed onto a piece of notepad paper I found in the drawer. I heard the heavy thud of the door connecting the garage to the mudroom. Then, footsteps, confident, rhythmic footsteps, the stride of a man who believes he owns the world beneath his Italian leather soles. Liam walked into the kitchen. He was carrying a brown paper bag from our favorite high-end sushi restaurant. The smell of soy sauce and warm rice wafted into the room, making my empty stomach cramp, but I ignored it. He stopped when he saw me. He smiled, that practiced, boys' boarding school smile that used to make my knees weak. "There you are," he said, his voice sickeningly cheerful. Alfred tells me you have been quiet for the last few hours. Good. I brought dinner. Spicy tuna rolls. Your favorite. He set the bag down on the counter, right next to the foreclosure notice. He did not look down. He began to loosen his tie. Pulling the silk knot free with a languid motion, I unlocked the fridge. He continued, walking over to the refrigerator and pulling out a bottle of sparkling water. You can eat now. I assume you are starving. Hunger is a great teacher, is it not? It teaches us gratitude. He took a sip of water, his Adam's apple bobbing. He turned to face me, leaning back against the counter, looking every inch the master of the house. Well, are you going to say thank you, or are we still pouting? I looked at him, really looked at him, beneath the expensive suit and the layer of foundation he wore to hide his dark circles. I saw a stranger, a hollow, rotten-fested stranger. I do not want your sushi. Liam, I said, my voice steady, though my hands were gripping the edge of the stool so hard my knuckles were white. He sighed, rolling his eyes. Stella, do not start. I had a long day. The market was brutal. The market? I interrupted, pushing the piece of paper with the transcribed text messages toward him. Or was it Lady Margaret? Did she deposit the $5,000? Did you wear the blue silk like she asked? The silence that followed was instant and absolute. The air was sucked out of the room. Liam froze. The bottle of water paused halfway to his mouth. He lowered it slowly to the counter. The glass made a sharp clink against the stone. He looked down at the paper. Then his eyes drifted to the foreclosure notice, then to the gambling markers. His face did not crumble. He did not look ashamed. Instead, his expression went blank. The charm evaporated, leaving behind something reptilian. You went into my office. He stated, it was not a question. I know everything. Action. Liam, I said, standing up, I know you are broke. I know the house is being foreclosed on. I know you are not an investor. You are a prostitute. The word hung in the air, ugly and raw. I expected him to deny it. I expected him to spin some elaborate lie about undercover work or misunderstood investments. Instead, he laughed. It was a cold, jagged sound that sent a shiver down my spine. A prostitute, he repeated, tasting the word. Such a pedestrian term. Stella, I prefer lifestyle consultant, or perhaps companion. You are disgusting. I spat. You made me sign a prenup for an empire that does not exist. You locked me in this house to hide your shame. You are drowning, Liam, and you are trying to drag me down with you. He moved so fast, I barely saw it coming. One moment, he was leaning against the counter. The next, he was in front of me, his hand wrapping around my throat. He did not squeeze hard enough to kill, but hard enough to paralyze. Hard enough to let me know he could. He slammed me back against the refrigerator. The breath left my lungs in a painful whoosh. Do you think I do this for fun? He hissed, his face inches from mine. I could smell the alcohol on his breath, mixed with the cloying scent of a woman's perfume. Rosewater and decay. I do this for us, he screamed, his spittle hitting my cheek. Do you like this house? Stella, do you like the heated floors? Do you like the clothes? Do you like not having to scrub tables for minimum wage? You are hurting me, I gasped, clawing at his hand. Good, he roared. You need to understand. This life costs $50,000 a month just to keep the lights on. Do you think I can make that trading stocks in this economy? I do what I have to do. I sell what I have to sell. I let those wrinkled, sagging women touch me so you can sleep on Egyptian cotton. He released me abruptly. I slumped to the floor, coughing, rubbing my bruised neck. He paced the kitchen, running his hands through his hair, manic energy radiating off him in waves. I am a martyr. Stella, I sacrifice my body for this family. And what do I get? Judgment? From you? A girl I picked out of the gutter? We are not a family, I rasped, just struggling to my feet. We are a lie. I am leaving. Liam, I am taking Buster, and I am leaving, and I am going to tell everyone. I am going to tell your mother. I am going to tell the world who you really are. Liam stopped pacing. He turned to me, and a slow, cruel smile spread across his face. It was the smile of a man who held all the aces. Go ahead, he said softly. Leave. I blinked, confused by his sudden shift. Walk out the door. He challenged, go to the police. Tell them your story. Tell them Liam Sterling is a gigolo. See if they care. He walked over to the kitchen drawer and pulled out a file I had not seen before. He tossed it onto the island. But before you go, you might want to look at that. I hesitated, then reached for the file. I opened it. Inside were bank statements. Statements for an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The account was in my name, Stella Monroe. I scanned the transactions. Deposits of $10,000, $20,000, $50,000. The dates went back 6 months. What is this? I whispered, my blood running cold. I do not have an offshore account. You do now, Liam said, leaning casually against the counter again, checking his cuticles. I set it up a while ago, just as a contingency. You see, Stella, those women I see, they pay me in cash or wire transfers, but I cannot have that money appearing in my accounts. The Internal Revenue Service asks too many questions. So I routed it through a shell company, and then Soyudzing Holing. 2 hash is greater than into yours. He looked at me with mock pity. Technically, on paper, you are the one receiving the illicit funds. You are the one embezzling money from my firm's accounts. I have created a very convincing paper trail that shows you, my disgruntled fiancé, have been siphoning money from my business to prepare for your escape. He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. If you go to the police, I will report you for corporate theft and fraud. The amount in that account is over $200,000. That is a felony. Stella, you will go to prison for 10 years. I stared at the papers, the numbers swimming before my eyes. He had framed me. He had been planning this from the beginning. I was not just his beard. I was his scapegoat. You are a monster, I breathed, and you are an accomplice. He countered. So here is the new deal. You are going to pick up those papers you stole from my safe. You are going to put them back. You are going to eat your sushi. And tomorrow night, you are going to smile at the charity gala and tell everyone how happy we are. He reached out and stroked my cheek. I flinched, but I did not pull away. I could not, because if you do not, he continued, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw, I will destroy you. I will ruin your name. I will send you to jail. And Buster, I will have him put down the next day. The mention of the dog broke me. It was the final straw. He knew exactly where to strike to inflict the maximum amount of pain. I looked at him, tears streaming down my face. I saw the triumphant gleam in his eyes. He had won. He had stripped me of my money, my freedom, and now my innocence I picked up the papers from the counter, the foreclosure notice, the gambling debts. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped them. Good girl, Liam said. He grabbed the sushi bag and shoved it into my chest. Eat, you look pale. He turned and walked out of the kitchen, whistling a cheerful tune. I stood there alone in the cold light of the kitchen. I looked at the file with the fake bank account. I looked at the door leading to the garage. It was unlocked now. I could run, but where would I go? To the police station, where he would meet me with a team of lawyers and a stack of evidence proving I was a thief? To the street, where I would be hunted down? I sank to the floor, clutching the file to my chest. A deep, guttural sob ripped through my throat. It was not a cry for help. It was a mournful wail for the girl I used to be. The girl who thought love was enough. The girl who thought she had found her Prince Charming. That girl died tonight. And as I sat there on the cold marble, listening to Liam turn on the television in the living room, a new thought began to take root in the wreckage of my mind. He had taken my life. He had taken my future. He had backed me into a corner with no way out. But he had made one mistake. He had shown me the weapon. He had shown me exactly how the game was played. He thought fear would keep me silent. He thought I was too weak to pull the trigger. I wiped the tears from my face. They felt cold and sticky. I stood up. I walked to the trash can and threw the sushi away. I was done being the victim. If he wanted a criminal, if he wanted a villain, if he wanted a woman capable of anything to survive, Sayu Jinghao Ling, R. Jinghao Dayu, then that is exactly what I would become. The limousine interior smelled of fresh leather and the distinct, metallic tang of my own fear. It was a suffocating scent, heavier than the expensive cologne Liam had doused himself in before we left the house. We sat in silence as the car glided down the winding roads of Greenwich. The partition raised between us and the driver. I stared out the tinted window at the passing blur of estate walls and iron gates. My hands were folded in my lap, resting on the silk of the red dress Liam had chosen for me. It was backless, plunging, and aggressive, a statement piece. He wanted me to look like a prize, a trophy that justified his exorbitant price tag. "You are shaking," Liam said without looking at me. He was scrolling through his phone, the blue light illuminating his sharp features. "I am cold. I lead. You are nervous," he corrected, sliding his phone into his breast pocket. He reached over and placed his hand on my knee. His grip was proprietary, heavy. "Do not be. All you have to do is stand there, look beautiful, and nod. If anyone asks about your design work, tell them you are taking a sabbatical to focus on our home. It sounds more elegant than unemployed." I turned to look at him. In the dim light, he looked like the man I had fallen in love with. Handsome, composed, successful. It was terrifying how perfectly the mask fit. "And if they ask about the bruise on my neck?" I asked softly, touching the spot where he had pinned me against the refrigerator 3 hours ago. I had covered it with layers of concealer, but I could still feel the phantom pressure of his thumb. Liam smiled, a tight, thin expression that did not reach his eyes. "You tell them we have a very passionate life. Stella, they will be jealous." The car slowed to a halt. We had arrived. The charity gala was being held at the Vanderbilt estate, a sprawling mansion that made our smart home look like a guest cottage. A red carpet had been rolled out leading up the stone steps, flanked by photographers. "Showtime," Liam whispered. The door opened. Flashbulbs erupted like a thunderstorm. Liam stepped out first. Buttoning his tuxedo jacket, he turned and offered me his hand. For a split second, I hesitated. I looked at his outstretched palm and saw the trap. If I took it, I was agreeing to the lie. If I took it, I was stepping back into the cage. But I had the burner phone tucked inside my clutch, pressed against a tube of lipstick and a compact mirror. I had a plan. I took his hand. Smile. He hissed through his teeth as we walked toward the blinding lights. I smiled. I smiled until the muscles in my cheeks burned. We paused for the cameras. Liam wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me flush against him. To the world, we were the golden couple. Young, rich, and hopelessly in love. We moved inside. The ballroom was a sea of black ties and designer gowns. A string quartet played somewhere in the corner, struggling to be heard over the roar of conversation. Waiters with silver trays wove through the crowd, offering champagne and caviar. Liam, darling, the voice was shrill and commanding. A woman approached us. She was in her late 60s, her skin pulled tight over her cheekbones, dripping in sapphires that likely cost more than the gross domestic product of a small country. I recognized the voice instantly. It was the voice from the first voicemail on the burner phone. Lady Margaret. Margaret, Liam said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming instantly smoother, more deferential. He took her hand and kissed the air above it. You look ravishing tonight. That shade of blue is exquisite on you. Flatterer? She giggled, batting her eyelashes. She turned her gaze to me. Her eyes were hard, assessing. She looked me up and down like I was a horse at an auction. And this must be the fiancé. This is Stella, Liam said. Stella. This is Lady Margaret. She is one of the Foundation's most generous donors. Pleasure, I managed to say. Extending my hand, Margaret took it. Her hand was cold and bony. She did not squeeze. She merely held it for a second before dropping it. She is very young. Liam, Margaret said, turning back to him, ignoring me completely. Does she have stamina? I froze. The double entendre was so blatant, so grotesque, that I felt the bile rise in my throat. Liam chuckled. A low, intimate sound. Stella is learning the ropes, but she knows her place. Margaret smirked. She reached out and adjusted Liam's bow tie, her fingers lingering on his chest a moment too long. Good. We would not want anything distracting you from your Sao Tsing Hao Ling. De dièse est supérieur à obligation. I am expecting a consultation next week. Liam, my portfolio needs heavy handling. I have it penciled in. Liam promised, I will be fully at your disposal. I stood there, a statue in a red dress, watching my fiancé negotiate his prostitution services right in front of my face. And the worst part was, no one around us batted an eye. They all knew, in this circle of extreme wealth and moral decay, Liam was just another luxury good to be shared and passed around. Excuse me, I said, my voice tight. I need to use the ladies' room. Liam's hand shot out and gripped my wrist. His smile remained fixed, but his eyes promised violence. Be quick. Darling, we have to greet Mrs. Henderson next. I pulled my arm away and walked toward the back of the hall, keeping my head high. I could feel his eyes boring into my back. I pushed through the heavy double doors of the restroom. It was empty. Thank God. It was an opulent space with marble floors, gold fixtures, and a fainting couch in the corner. I checked under the stalls. Empty. I locked the main door. I opened my clutch and pulled out the cheap flip phone. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I dialed the number I had memorized a lifetime ago. Xiaoyu Jinghao Ling. 2. Chloe. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Pick up, please. Pick up. Hello? A sleepy voice answered. It was almost 10 o'clock. Chloe was probably in bed, watching Netflix in her cramped apartment in Queens. I had never missed that apartment more than I did right now. Chloe, I whispered, my voice breaking. It is me. It is Stella. There was a pause, a heavy, loaded silence. I had not spoken to Chloe in 8 months. I had ghosted her when Liam told me she was too lowbrow for our new life. Stella? Her voice hardened. You have a lot of nerve calling me after. I am in trouble. I cut her off. Chloe, please. I do not have time to explain everything. I am trapped. Trapped? What do you mean? The anger in her voice shifted to concern instantly. That was Chloe, loyal to a fault, even when I did not deserve it. Liam, Xiao Jinghao Ling. 2 hash is greater than he is, not who we thought he was. I said, speaking rapidly, my eyes darting to the door. He is broke. He is a criminal. He has locked me in the house. He took my money. He framed me for embezzlement. I am at the Vanderbilt Gala right now. I have maybe 5 minutes before he comes looking for me. Whoa. Slow down. Chloe said, framed you? Locked you in? Stella, call the police. I cannot. I said, he has set it up so I look like the thief. If I go to the cops without hard proof, he will bury me. He has lawyers. Chloe, he has connections. I need to destroy him publicly. I need to catch him in a lie so big he cannot buy his way out of it. Okay, Chloe said, her voice snapping into focus. What do you need me to do? I need you to log into my old cloud account. I instructed, I am going to send you photos of documents I found in his safe. Foreclosure notices, gambling debts, and I need you to record a live stream. A live stream? Tonight, I said. I am going to get him to confess. I am going to trick him, but I need someone to record it and blast it everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. I need the court of public opinion before I face the court of law. You are scaring me. Stell, Chloe said softly. Is he Xiaoyu Jinghao Ling? 2 hash is greater than is he dangerous? I touched my neck again. Yes, but he is also arrogant, and that is what I am going to use. Someone tried the handle of the restroom door. The knob jiggled violently. Stella? It was Liam's voice. Stella, open this door. You have been in there too long. I have to go. I whispered. I will text you the signal. Be ready. Be careful, Chloe said. I hung up. I shoved the phone back into the hidden lining of my clutch. I took a deep breath. Looking at myself in the mirror, the girl looking back was pale. Her eyes were wide with terror. No, I told my reflection. Stop it. I reached into my makeup bag and pulled out the red lipstick. I applied a fresh coat, my hand steadying with every stroke. I fluffed my hair. I pinched my cheeks to bring color back to them. I unlocked the door and swung it open. Liam was standing there, his face red with suppressed rage. He looked ready to strike me right there in the hallway. What the hell were you doing? He hissed, grabbing my upper arm. Mrs. Henderson is waiting. I did not pull away. I did not flinch. Instead, I looked him dead in the eye, and I let a slow, sultry smile spread across my lips. I was fixing my face. Darling, I purred, my voice dropping to a register I had never used with him before. I wanted to look perfect for your Xiaoyu Jinghao Ling. 2 investors. Liam blinked. He looked taken aback. He loosened his grip slightly. What? I stepped closer to him, invading his personal space. I ran my hand down the lapel of his tuxedo, smoothing the fabric. I have been thinking in there, Liam. I lead about what you said in the kitchen. He narrowed his eyes, suspicious, and I think you are right. I said, I have been so selfish. I was looking at this all wrong. I was acting like a naive little girl. I looked over his shoulder at the ballroom, at the glittering chandeliers and the powerful people, this life. I gestured vaguely. It is worth it, is it not? The house, the clothes, the power. Who cares where the money comes from? Who cares who you have to sleep with? As long as we stay on top? Liam stared at me, searching for a crack in my performance. But he found none, because he wanted to believe it. His narcissism was his blind spot. He wanted to believe that he had broken me, that he had won, that I was finally seeing the logic of his twisted world. You mean that? He asked, his voice softening. I do, I said. I am sorry I fought you. I was scared, but I see the big picture now. We are partners, right? You bring in the money. I keep the house perfect. That is the deal. A slow grin spread across his face. It was triumphant, arrogant. Finally, he said, letting out a breath. Finally, you are using that brain of yours. He kissed my forehead. It took every ounce of my willpower not to knee him in the groin. Come on, he said, offering his arm again. Let us go make some money. We walked back into the party, but this time, I was not being dragged. I was walking into the arena. We mingled for an hour. I played the part of the doting wife perfectly. I laughed at Mrs. Henderson's jokes. I complimented Lady Margaret on her surgeries. I watched Liam work the room, watching him flirt and charm and sell himself piece by piece. And as the night wore on, I saw him relax. He drank more champagne. He laughed louder. He became sloppy. He thought he was safe. He thought he had successfully converted me into an accomplice. I leaned in close to his ear as the band started playing a slow waltz. Liam, I whispered, I want to sign the papers. He looked at me, his eyes slightly glazed from the alcohol. What papers? The new agreement, I said. The one about the open marriage. And Saoyuting 2# is greater than the transfer of assets. I want to make it official. Tonight, when we get home. He looked at me with pure delight. Tonight? Why the rush? Because, I said, tracing a finger down his chest. If I am going to be a bad girl, I want to commit to it fully. I want to prove to you that I am on your team. That is my girl, he said, pulling me onto the dance floor. We will do it the second we get back. We will celebrate. He spun me around. I rested my head on his shoulder, staring out at the blurred faces of the crowd. Yes, we would celebrate, because tonight, Liam Sterling was going to sign his own death warrant. He thought I was signing away my dignity. In reality, I was preparing to sign away his entire life. I felt the burner phone buzzing against my hip. A single vibration, signal received. Chloe was ready. I closed my eyes and let him lead me through the dance, saving my strength for the final act. The victim was gone. The survivor was here, and she was absolutely ruthless. The ride back to the estate was a blur of Liam's self-congratulatory monologue. He was drunk on expensive champagne and even drunker on the delusion of his own victory. He believed he had finally broken me. He believed I was now a willing participant in his twisted little circus. When we walked through the front door, The house greeted us with its suffocating silence. The shutters were still down, sealing us inside. But tonight, the darkness felt different. It was no longer a cage. It was a stage. Liam tossed his tuxedo jacket onto the foyer bench and loosened his tie. Swaying slightly, "God, I am exhausted," he slurred, heading straight for the wet bar in the living room. "Did you see Margaret's face when you complimented her necklace? She practically purred. You were perfect, Stella. Absolutely perfect. I told you," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "I am on your team now." I walked to the kitchen island where I had left the stack of papers earlier. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from a cold, sharp anticipation. I had prepared the documents while he was in the shower before the gala, burying the real clauses under pages of legal gibberish I had printed from online templates. "Liam," I called out, "before we go up, let us sign the papers, like we discussed." He groaned, pouring himself another scotch. "Can it not wait until morning? I want to celebrate." "No," I said, walking into the living room, the papers in one hand and the burner phone hidden in the palm of the other. "I need to do it now. If I do not sign now, I might lose my nerve. I want to prove to you that I accept Sao Yu Ting Hao Ling. 2 hashes greater than everything. The open marriage, the lifestyle, everything." He looked at me, his eyes glassy. The appeal to his ego was irresistible. He wanted to cement his ownership of me. "Fine," he said, flopping onto the white leather sofa. "Bring them here." I placed the papers on the coffee table. I handed him a pen. "This one," I pointed to the bottom of the first page, "is the amendment to the prenup. It says, I consent to the open arrangement." He scribbled his signature without reading a word. "And this," I flipped to the next page, "is the transfer of assets we talked about, just to formalize the joint accounts." It was actually a document transferring full legal ownership of Buster, my dog, to me, along with a notarized confession of debt stating he owed me $150,000 for services rendered. A nice little reversal of his own game. He signed it with a flourish. "There," he said, dropping the pen. "Are you happy now? You are officially Mrs. Liam Sterling, in sickness and in health, and in whoever else I decide to sleep with." I took the papers and set them aside. "Thank you, Liam." I stepped back. I moved to the bookshelf opposite the sofa. I propped the burner phone up against a heavy crystal vase. I tapped the screen. The icon for the live stream turned red. Liv, Chloe was watching, and within seconds, thanks to the hashtags she had prepared, hundreds, then thousands of people would be watching. "What are you doing?" Liam asked, squinting at me. "Just preserving the moment," I said. I turned to face him. I let the mask drop. The submissive smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated disgust. "So, tell me again?" "Liam," I said, my voice loud and clear for the microphone. "Tell me why you have to sleep with 70-year-old women." Liam laughed, taking a swig of his drink. He did not notice the tone shift yet. "Oh, stop it. Do not be crude." "It is not crude, is it?" I pressed. "It is your job. You are a gigolo. You sell your body to pay for this house because you are a failure as a businessman." The air in the room changed instantly. Liam sat up straighter. The amusement vanished from his face. "Watch your mouth, Stella," he warned, his voice dropping. "Why?" I challenged. "Are you afraid someone will hear?" You told me it was noble. You told me you were a martyr. You told me you sleep with Lady Margaret and Mrs. Henderson because you are too incompetent to make money honestly. I am not incompetent, he roared, slamming his glass down. The scotch spilled over the table. I am a genius. I play the system. I take money from those withered old hags because they are desperate. And I am the only one willing to touch them. I glanced at the phone. The viewer count was ticking up. So you used them, I said, just like you used me. You locked me in this house today. Liam, you cut off my funds. You threatened to kill my dog. Is that what a genius does? Or is that what a psychopath does? Liam stood up, swaying on his feet. He looked menacing, a towering figure of rage in a rumpled tuxedo. I locked you in because you are a child, he screamed, stepping toward me. You do not understand how the world works. I own you. Stella, I bought you. I paid off your pathetic little student loans. I put clothes on your back. You are nothing without me. You are a parasite. And what are you? I stepped closer to the phone, ensuring his face was perfectly in frame. You are a fraud. You are drowning in gambling debt. You are stealing from your clients. And you are abusing your fiancé. I can do whatever I want to you. He lunged at me, grabbing my shoulders and shaking me. I am Liam Sterling. I am untouchable. If I want to lock you up, I will. If I want to screw every widow in Connecticut to pay for my Porsche, I will. And you will sit there and smile because I own you. He raised his hand to strike me. I did not flinch. I looked him dead in the eye and said 3 words. We are live. Liam froze. His hand hovered in the air. What? He whispered. I pointed to the phone on the bookshelf. The red light was blinking. The screen was flooded with comments. They were scrolling so fast, it was a blur of rage and shock. Munster, call the police. I recorded this. He is finished. Liam looked at the phone. He looked back at me. The color drained from his face, leaving him a sickly shade of gray. He released me and stumbled back, horror dawning in his eyes. No, he stammered. No, you did not. I did, I said, my voice cold as ice. Say hello to your investors. Liam, say hello to Lady Margaret. I am sure she is watching. Chloe sent her the link personally. He lunged for the phone, knocking the vase over. It shattered on the floor. He grabbed the device and smashed it against the marble fireplace. The screen went black, but it was too late. The silence that followed was deafening. It was not the silence of a prison anymore. It was the silence of a tomb. Liam stood there, panting, staring at the broken pieces of plastic and glass. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw true fear in his eyes. Not the fear of losing money, the fear of total annihilation. You bitch, he whispered, his voice trembling. You ruined everything. No, Liam, I said, picking up the signed papers from the table. I just turned on the lights. Outside, in the distance, I heard the faint wail of sirens. They were getting louder. Chloe had called them. The viewers had called them. Liam heard them too. He ran to the window, peering through the slats of the security shutters. Blue and red lights were flashing against the front gate. Open the door. A voice boomed over a megaphone. Police, we have a warrant. Liam turned to me, panic seizing him. He looked for a way out, but there was none. He had built this house to be a fortress to keep me in. Now, it was the cage that would keep him from getting out. Help me, he pleaded, the arrogance completely gone. Stella, please, Tell them it was a joke. Tell them we were acting. I will give you anything. I will give you half the money. You have no money. Liam, I said, walking toward the door as the heavy pounding began on the wood. And you have nothing I want. I reached the control panel on the wall, the same panel he had used to lock me in. I pressed the button marked Emergency Release. The shutters began to rise. The heavy locks on the front door disengaged with a loud clank. The door swung open. The cool night air rushed in, smelling of freedom and rain. Police officers swarmed into the foyer, guns drawn. I stepped aside, clutching the papers to my chest. He is all yours, I said. The house, usually a sanctuary of controlled silence and ambient temperatures, was now a cacophony of static radios and shouting voices. The blue and red strobe lights from the patrol cars outside sliced through the open front door, painting the white marble foyer in violent, rhythmic flashes of color. I stood by the staircase, clutching the signed papers to my chest like a shield. My legs, which had been made of steel only moments ago, now felt like water. The adrenaline was leaving my body, draining away and leaving behind a cold, shaking emptiness. Liam was on the floor. 3 officers were on top of him. He was not going quietly. He was thrashing, kicking, screaming obscenities that echoed off the high ceilings. Get off me, he shrieked, his face pressed against the cold stone. Do you know who I am? I am Liam Sterling. I will sue you. I will sue this entire department. Stop resisting, an officer shouted, pressing his knee into Liam's back. I watched the scene with a strange sense of detachment. It felt like I was watching a movie through the wrong end of a telescope. That man on the floor, slobbering and crying, stripped of his dignity. That was the man I had planned to spend my life with. That was the man I had feared. It was pathetic. With a sharp, metallic click, the handcuffs were secured behind his back. They hauled him up. His tuxedo was torn at the shoulder. His hair was wild. There was a smear of blood on his lip where he must have bitten it during the struggle. He looked up and locked eyes with me. For a second, I expected to see the monster again. The rage, the threat, but there was nothing left in his eyes but terror. He looked like a child who had broken a vase and knew, for the first time, that there was no one coming to clean up the mess. Stella, he croaked, his voice cracking. Stella, tell them it was a misunderstanding. I did not say a word. I just stared at him. Miss Monroe? A female officer approached me gently. She looked young, maybe my age. She held out a gray wool blanket. Are you injured? Do you need a medic? I shook my head slowly. No, I am fine. Come sit down, she said, guiding me toward the front steps outside. Let us get you some air. As I walked past Liam, the iPad sitting on the hallway console table synced to his accounts. Lit up, it dinged, then it dinged again, and again. A rapid-fire succession of chimes that sounded like a slot machine paying out. I glanced at the screen. Email from Lady Margaret. Subject: termination. Do not contact me again. My lawyers will be in touch. Email from Countess V. Subject: you fool. News alert. Greenwich socialite exposed in shocking live stream. His world was not just crumbling, it was being vaporized. The wealthy women who funded his existence were cutting the cords faster than a surgeon. They were protecting themselves, scrambling away from the radioactive fallout of his exposure. He was not just going to jail, he was going to be destitute. The officers dragged him out the door. He tried to dig his heels into the gravel driveway, sobbing now, a broken, wailing sound that cut through the night air. "Mom!" He screamed toward the dark sky. "Mom!" I sat on the cold stone steps of the porch. The female officer wrapped the blanket around my shoulders. It was scratchy and smelled of antiseptic, but I pulled it tight. A black sedan screeched to a halt at the gate, nearly hitting a police cruiser. Eleanor Sterling burst out of the car. She was not wearing her usual armor of perfection. She was in a silk robe, her hair in rollers. Looking frantic, she must have seen the stream. "Liam," she screamed, running toward the police car where they were shoving him into the back seat. "Get your hands off him. That is my son." An officer intercepted her, holding her back. "Ma'am, stay back. He is innocent," Eleanor wailed, her voice shrill and desperate. "She did this. That girl did this. She is a liar. She is a thief." She pointed a shaking finger at me, sitting on the steps. Her eyes were wild with hatred. "You ruined him," she shrieked. "You ungrateful little gutter rat. You destroyed my family." I looked at her. I did not feel angry. I did not feel afraid. I just felt, 小鱼经号令, 2# is greater than tired. Your family was already destroyed. "Eleanor," I whispered to myself. I just took the roof off so everyone could see the rot. The officer gently guided Eleanor away as she dissolved into hysterics, sobbing into her hands. The flashing lights reflected off her weeping form. It was a tragedy of their own making, a Greek tragedy of hubris and greed. The patrol car with Liam inside pulled away, gravel crunching under the tires. He was gone. The silence rushed back in to fill the void he left behind. I sat there for a long time. The adrenaline crash hit me then. My hands started to shake uncontrollably. My teeth chattered. Buster, my golden retriever, trotted out the open front door. He sniffed the air, then walked over to me. He sat down and rested his heavy head on my knee. Letting out a long sigh, I buried my hand in his fur. It was over. I looked up at the massive house looming behind me. The smart lights were still on. The security cameras were still blinking. But it did not look like a castle anymore. It looked like a tomb. I should have felt triumphant. I had won. I had exposed him. I had escaped. But as I sat there, in the cold night air, wrapped in a police blanket, I did not feel like a winner. I felt hollowed out. I felt the weight of the last 2 years pressing down on me. The wasted time, the misplaced trust, the parts of myself I had chiseled away to fit into his mold. I had survived. Yes, but survival is not the same as living. Survival leaves scars. I looked down at the engagement ring, still on my finger, the giant diamond that had felt like a shackle. I slowly slid it off. It felt heavy in my palm. I placed it on the stone step beside me. I did not want his money. I did not want his house. I did not want his name. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the damp, cool air. It tasted like rain. It tasted like uncertainty. It tasted like freedom. 3 months had passed since the night the flashing lights of the police cruisers illuminated the Greenwich estate. I stood in front of a small, cracked mirror in a 4th-floor walk-up apartment in Queens. The reflection staring back at me was different from the porcelain doll who had prepared for the engagement party. My hair was pulled back in a messy bun, not a professionally styled coiffure. I was wearing a stained, oversized t-shirt, not an emerald silk gown. There were dark circles under my eyes from working double shifts at a graphic design firm that paid peanuts but offered health insurance. I looked tired. I looked worn. But for the first time in 2 years, the eyes staring back at me were not dead. They were sharp. They were alive. I turned away from the mirror and walked into the living room, which also doubled as the kitchen and the dining area. It was the size of Liam's walk-in closet. The radiator in the corner hissed and clanked violently, a stark contrast to the silent, automated climate control of the smart home. Buster was asleep on a cheap rug I had bought at a thrift store. He twitched in his sleep, chasing imaginary squirrels. He was happy here. He barked at the mailman. He shed on the furniture. He was allowed to be a dog, not an accessory. I sat down at the small laminate table and opened my laptop. The news tab was still open. The headline read, "Gold Coast Gigolo denied bail. Additional fraud charges filed." Liam was currently sitting in a holding cell, awaiting trial. The fallout had been catastrophic and total. Once the live stream went viral, the dominoes fell with terrifying speed. The banks foreclosed on the mansion within weeks. The luxury cars were repossessed, and the women, Lady Margaret, Mrs. Henderson, and the rest, had turned on him with the ferocity of cornered vipers to save their own reputations. They claimed Liam had blackmailed them, painting him as a predator to hide their own solicitation. He was facing 10 to 15 years in prison. Eleanor Sterling had been forced to sell her own home to pay for his initial legal defense. But it was a losing battle. The last I heard, she was living in a small condo in Florida, shunned by the society she worshipped. I closed the laptop. I should have felt a surge of victory. I should have felt like the hero of the story, but I did not. I took a sip of my lukewarm instant coffee. It tasted bitter, but it was honest. The truth was, I was not just a victim. I had to own my part in the tragedy. When Liam first swept me off my feet, I saw the red flags. I saw the controlling behavior. I saw the arrogance. But I ignored them. I ignored them because I was tired of struggling. I ignored them because I wanted the safety, the warmth, and the ease that his money provided. I had sold pieces of myself long before he asked me to sign that contract. I had traded my independence for a heated driveway and a closet full of Chanel. I had let myself be bought, and that silence, that complicit agreement to look the other way, was my own burden to carry. I looked down at the documents on the table. The only thing I had walked away with was Buster and my freedom. I had no settlement, no alimony. The debt Liam owed me was uncollectible because he was bankrupt. I was back to where I started, counting pennies for the subway, eating ramen noodles, and worrying about rent. But as the radiator clanked again and the sound of sirens wailed in the distance, hail sirens, city sirens, the sound of life happening, I felt a strange lightness in my chest. I was poor, I was alone, I was starting over from zero at 25, but no one owned me. I walked over to the window and pushed it open. The air smelled of exhaust fumes and rain, not manicured lawns and secrets. I took a deep breath. I looked back at Buster, who opened one sleepy eye and wagged his tail. "We are okay, buddy," I whispered. "We are okay." The golden cage was beautiful, but it was still a cage. And as I stood there in my drafty, tiny apartment, I finally understood the most expensive lesson of my life. The price of freedom is high, but the price of your soul is higher. And I was never going to let anyone hold the receipt for mine ever again.